Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. The Road to Autonomy is brought to you in part by Stantec Generation AV. Stantec Generation AV combines some of the most experienced AV experts in the industry with the resources of a global engineering firm. Stantec Generation AV provides education, consulting, assessment, and guidance to any industry interested in autonomous vehicles. Learn more at stantec.com. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to have Kinne, Director of Logistics Innovation, Hillwood. Welcome to the podcast, Ian.
Grayson, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
I'm really excited to have you here. All the individuals I speak to in logistics, autonomous trucking, middle mile delivery, consulting, there's a common denominator there. Everything comes back to Hillwood, and everybody says you're awesome. So I can't wait to pull back this curtain and find out what's so special about Hillwood and what you're up to in the great state of Texas.
Well, hopefully that they haven't pumped us up too much, but we're definitely excited to share the story and always happy to meet with great people. We've been blessed to, as you mentioned, really every stage of the supply chain. We've had some great partners and consultants, and I mean, really everyone. It definitely takes a village to get to this point.
It takes a village. You've had great partners and you're associated with great brands with a visionary company. And I want to stay on the visionary track here for a minute because Hillwood's AllianceTexas development started as a vision. Today, it's a 27,000 acre development, which has generated $92 billion in direct economic impact. I repeat, $92 billion in direct economic impact and has created 63,000 direct jobs in just 30 years. From a vision to an impressive juggernaut. Could you talk about that story? Because it's really, really remarkably incredible.
No, I mean, I'm happy to. It's really a great story. I want to take us back really to the 80s and really the vision of the Perot family, both Mr. Perot, Ross Sr., as well as Perot Jr., who actually is the chairman of Hillwood today. Really, a lot of it goes back to just looking at how Dallas as an area was developing. And if you look at it on a map, really the 80s was a lot of growth up the tollway and up Interstate 75, just north of Dallas. So Dallas, Plano, kind of that whole region where EDS, which was Mr. Perot's company, had done their headquarters. And they took that and looked at why wasn't that happening on the west side of the Metroplex, so along Interstate 35. So Perot family started investing here in what would become Alliance in the north side of Fort Worth, Texas, along Interstate 35, acquiring land. And then ultimately the name was for Alliance comes from a great story where DFW Airport was growing and needed to build a additional airport to take some of the capacity off of DFW to help with that. And so Hillwood actually granted the land for a new airport to the city of Fort Worth and in partnership with the FAA, developed the airport. So this actually became the world's first industrial airport here in Alliance, Texas. So that story is important because the Perot family has a long history of aviation, really forward thinking. And that really is evident in a lot of the work that we do today, especially. So I do a lot of the work on the surface side of things, but our air team is also very robust with UAS and eVTOLs and things like that. So a whole nother conversation we can get into. But what started with the airport in 88, 89, and then was followed by the BNSF intermodal facility in 1994. Back in 1994, we really didn't know what intermodal was. And that was a really kind of a newer concept at that point that really wasn't being done. And actually back then, it wasn't even really BNSF. BNSF was really very recently. It used to be Santa Fe, and it was Santa Fe here, and then the Burlington Northern joined with them as well. So pretty interesting. Back then, it was really just farmland. A lot of it was farmland, and we started building infrastructure. So roads, sewer, water, and actually laying things like heavy power and fiber in the ground before really fiber was anything that was important. And then we started with selling the land, and then ultimately kind of grew into building some speculative industrial buildings. It was quickly leased up, started growing the industrial market up here. And then there was a need for other just basic services, things like places to eat, places to shop, places to live, schools, things like that. And so our platform grew from being a land development company to an industrial development company to really a mixed use development company, which is now Alliance. So a lot of the things that we learned here in Alliance, we've now been able to apply around the world. So everything from being one of the largest master plan community developers in the state, as well as the country, was something we learned here in Alliance. We're now active as a company in 62 markets, 6 countries, 29 states. So really all around the world. And then this stat, you had mentioned the economic impact, but a really important stat that I wanted to highlight here was since 1990, we've contributed $2.8 billion in property taxes. So really a lot of this is an economic juggernaut that fuels a lot of the great things that this area is able to do, and a lot of it being some fantastic schools here in North Texas. So we're very proud of it. We kind of call it our mothership, and there's a lot of great things that we've learned here that we've been able to apply around the world.
Impressive. Absolutely impressive. I want to dive into something here because there's a gentleman who has since passed that I've long admired in Walt Disney. And as Walt Disney came to Florida, he had to set up various different LLCs and companies to acquire the land because here comes Mr. Disney coming to Florida. What's going on? Did Mr. Perot Sr. have to follow a similar track to Walt Disney in order to acquire all that land?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't acquire 27,000 acres overnight. I mean, it's been a gradual building over time of parcels here, parcels there. Initially, it was kind of larger ranches that had been, or farms that had been up here for a long time, and acquiring those and piecing them together. An important note is we say Alliance, Texas is 27,000 acres. It's really, call it 20 miles north to south by 10 miles east to west, straddling Interstate 35. It's not one contiguous block of 27,000 acres, but the benefit of that is there's a really big diversity of environments within Alliance, Texas, and a lot of different things that we can do. But going back to your question on land assemblage, yes, I mean, we do frequently. We have a lot of different entities within Hillwood and a lot of different ways of acquiring land. And that's, something we're very familiar with.
Today, if the company made the strategic decision to expand the Alliance Texas development, is there still more land for you to expand as more world-class partners call you up and say, hey, Ian, we want to expand down to Texas? Is there still land for you to continue to grow, or are you completely built out?
So the great thing, we always tell our customers that we want you to grow here in Alliance. We want to grow with you. We want to do everything we can to help you grow. And that really will lead in probably later into more our discussions around the mobility innovation zone and some things we're doing to really help our customers grow. But as far as land, I mean, we're about 50% built out. So we built 55 million square feet of industrial to date here in Alliance, just us. It used to just be us out here in Alliance. It used to be, we were the only show in town. But as you can imagine, with just how hot the Dallas industrial market is now, that's really grown to many other developers here. But our thing is, this is us. This is our roots. This is our home. We'll be here. We've been here for 30 years. We'll be here for another 30 years. And we're going to keep developing some really high quality products and growing with our customers.
The Dallas property market, as you alluded to, is booming. Schwab is moving a large office there. Goldman Sachs is opening a large office. And all these companies are going there, and you're looking at Dallas and looking at what you said, and there's been a constant commitment from Hillwood to innovation. You mentioned earlier that fiber was put in early on. Where and when was the decision made to embrace innovation on day one? Let's take the, if you want to call it the risk, put the fiber in the ground and basically allow individuals to build really cool stuff on top of that fiber network.
Well, once again, I mean, that goes back to the Perot family, just being incredibly forward thinking and empowering us and challenging us as a company to really kind of think not about the next year to 5 years, but really what's the next 10 plus years hold, and what are the things we need to be doing now to enable that to actually happen. So really empowering from a leadership perspective, but going to really our innovation story here in Alliance in the mobility innovation zone, which just, I think that's probably a good time, but there's a big story here. And a lot of that was, we were approached by Uber a few years ago, call it 5 years ago, to work with them as their vertiport development partner here in North Texas. And so that was helping them determine sites for these vertiports for their future air taxi service, looking at everything from our existing developments to land acquisitions to retrofit parking garages. I mean, you name it, you've probably seen everything in the news. So working with them on that, and that was really eye-opening for us. And then the second thing that came was we actually stood up Drive AI and a private 5G network in Frisco. So we have a development called Frisco Station, which is a mixed-use development that surrounds the Dallas Cowboys world headquarters. And yes, world headquarters, the Dallas Cowboys. So surrounds that. So that's retail, dining, apartments, office, medical, really everything. So building a community up there. And this partnership with Drive AI was a shuttle that would take people from the Hall Office Park to the Star to Frisco Station in a loop. And that ended up completing over 5,000 rides for people up there. And a big part of that was working with AT&T to really stand up the 5G up there. So two critical lessons we learned early were, kind of a lot of companies, a lot of really influential companies such as AT&T and Uber were really focused on this and kind of the new world. And we wanted to be there. And really, I think at that point, we realized that while Frisco Station is a very important project to us, it's not within Alliance Texas. Alliance Texas is our home. And really our strength as a company is on the industrial side of things, at least our group. So we thought it's important to really apply what we learned in Frisco and with Uber to our freight and logistics development here within Alliance, Texas. So if you can move a person, it's a heck of a lot easier to move some packages around, or not easier, but a little bit less of a interesting. So we've been focused really heavily on the freight side of things and logistics, and really that's where our strengths are as a company. So it's been great.
You're clearly learning a lot, but you said something there that put a smile on my face. World headquarter for the Dallas Cowboys. To me, the Dallas Cowboys are a world-class brand backed by an incredible revenue-generating business. I could just imagine what the licensing numbers look like for the Cowboys merchandising. So world headquarters is a great thing. It's an incredibly well-run organization that is a brand, that is a business. So you've got all this awesome insight. You're learning. The Drive AI published a report of what they learned of moving passengers around Frisco. You've got all this incredible insight into logistics with Amazon operating a regional air hub, and the Alliance, a FedEx Southwest regional sort hub, a UPS ground hub, and a BNSF Alliance intermodal hub. You have all these incredible world-class companies operating at Alliance. You've got to meet the team at Drive, learn from their public perception of autonomy. I'd love to know this because this is in the news a lot. And from your opinion and all the incredible insight, and you're always learning philosophy, what can you share about the current state of the global supply chain? Are you seeing anything that you can share with us?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think really the past 18 months really exposed some challenges in the current global supply chain. You're seeing things, even currently with the number of ships that are stuck waiting to unload in Long Beach, or the amount of dwell time we're seeing at a lot of big coastal ports, to just the ultimate driver shortages that we're seeing in the long haul freight market. There's a lot of challenges. We're a economy and a country that expects things quickly and cheaply, and ultimately it's hard to have both in those a lot of times. So what we've seen is a lot of our key customers, and really across the board, getting very focused on how do they solve these issues using advanced technology. A key part of that has been autonomy, as you're aware, and we've really focused with a lot of different groups on the long haul, on the first and last mile, and really the middle mile. It's really every phase of the supply chain we've been focused. And a lot of our customers are starting to look at that. So I think we're a lot smarter now than we were back in March of 2020 when this started to hit. But I think there's still a lot of things to learn, and I think a lot of big questions that are being answered.
You have a front seat to autonomy because Kodiak is operating there, Too Simple's operating there, Embark's operating there. So you have three world-class companies operating in your facilities. Today, are they currently hauling freight, or are they still in the development phase of getting ready to haul freight?
So currently, all those guys are hauling freight in some capacity, whether in Alliance or not. They're all hauling freight. Too Simple's hub is a great example of, I think, kind of what a lot of this will look like, and we're excited about the Kodiak and Embark teams as well. But I'll talk about Too Simple first. Their facility here was their first ground up truck terminal that they'll be doing, and really it's going to be serving as a blueprint for a lot of their future truck terminals across their autonomous freight network. So we were really excited to partner with them on that and to develop that here. And really with them, that has been a key part of their freight network as they are hauling loads from El Paso here, and also expanding that now, trying to get all the way to the East Coast. So that's been really, really interesting to see. There's a lot of their very public partners that they've been working with that obviously we're also have here in Alliance. And then on the Kodiak and Embark side of things, we are really excited to be developing the world's first autonomous truck port with them as a partnership with Kodiak, Embark, NCT Cog, City of Fort Worth, and then Pilot Flying J. So some really great partners on that. So a couple key lessons from that. One is the industry is willing to work together, obviously. So it's not just Kodiak and Embark. It's actually, there's others that we can't name yet that are going to be also joining as well. So that's exciting. I think also just a big organization like Pilot being willing to really look at how their business is going to evolve and need to adapt to this new world of autonomy. And as there's less and less truck drivers that need to buy beef jerky and a Gatorade and a hot shower, how does their business need to change to adapt to that? So that's been interesting, kind of being at the front seat of that conversation. And ultimately with NCT Cog and the City of Fort Worth, I think City of Fort Worth, I'm from here, born and raised. It's been really, really great to see kind of how the city has embraced autonomy and really these technologies and this culture of innovation that they've been trying to foster so well. And everything we're doing up here in Mobility Innovation Zone is very tied to the City of Fort Worth and their efforts as well. And then NCTCOG really as the leading metropolitan planning organization really in the country, really on the leading edge of autonomy and electrification and charging infrastructure. I mean, just all the big questions that we're trying to answer. They're right there with us, if not leading the pack. So we're very excited for that. I think it's going to be great. And ultimately, it's just evident of Dallas-Fort Worth as being a really leading market for a lot of this autonomous long-haul technology.
Thomas Bamonte, I want to give him a shout out. Is an incredible individual at NCT COG. Absolutely honored to have him on a previous podcast, but that gentleman's an encyclopedia of autonomy. So Thomas, if you're listening, sir, you are the encyclopedia of autonomy. You're doing a really great job. And I said this to Thomas, and I'll say this to you publicly, is that Dallas-Fort Worth is the home of autonomous trucking. Everything for autonomous trucking. You're going to become the capital of autonomous trucking. And it seems that it's not just myself thinking that. Mr. Perot Jr., the chairman of Hillwood, in a press release stated the following about the Too Simple announcement. As the industry leader in the development of autonomous long-haul truck routes, Too Simple brings this technology to AllianceTexas today, ensuring that the MIZ will be a global focal point in the commercialization of the next generation logistics solutions. Did that announcement with Too Simple and Mr. Perot Jr.'s statement, did that the rest of the industry said, wait a second, something special here has happened in Hillwood. We want to go join the party?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. I think a lot of people already knew, what was going on here, especially within the industry. But I think what that announcement really did was tell everybody else that this is here, it's now, and it's real. And I think that's really our message with the Mobility Innovation Zone, is that this technology is here. We have something that we're really proud of is obviously our infrastructure and alliance, our relationships we've built over 30 years, and ultimately the partnerships that we need to grow this from not just being an idea, but really a commercialized technology and a business. So DFW has historically been one of the leading, if not the leading, truck freight routes and really just freight routes from a rail perspective as well in the country. And a lot of that is just simple facts of we're a big state and we are a big metropolitan area that consumes a lot of stuff. But also just our central location serves as a great point for big brick distribution centers. So we've had a lot of those kind of large bomber facilities, I guess you'd call them, which are, the 1 million square foot or plus. We've always had that, really grown a lot of that in the past few years as well. But ultimately, just we are a trucking city. We're the largest city not on a body of water. We have the Trinity River, and that's not much, but otherwise everything here has come either by train or truck.
Is it because of geographical location, the historic nature of Dallas-Fort Worth being a trucking hub? Is that why Hillwood decided to fully embrace autonomous trucking?
I think when you look at a lot of autonomous trucking companies, a lot of them started on obviously the autonomous car side of things and then pivoted to autonomous trucking. And we were fortunate to get really focused on this in the part of in the game when really there was some great technology coming out on the long haul side of things. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, our strength is with freight and logistics and industrial. So we saw that as a way forward, and really the long haul trucking leading the adoption of autonomy, really just with the technology stack and really some of the customers working on it, the companies working on it, what they're able to do. We saw that as something that was significantly quicker to market. Obviously got us very excited. So the thing is that autonomous trucking is here now. The technology is there. Really all it is now is growing the business, and there's obviously tweaking and some growth that still needs to happen, but there is technology there to start hauling freight now. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we could to make sure that was a commercial reality as soon as possible.
The autonomous trucking will shore up the supply chain. It's going to have a positive impact on the U.S. economy. And I really want to point out and say thank you for, you keep saying it's a business, because I like the approach that Mr. Perot Jr. has taken towards operating Hillwood as a business. The Dallas Cowboys, going back to that, it's operated as a business. You're operating with the team Hillwood as a business, and it's something impressive. And there's a gentleman at a large vehicle side, Dan Amman, who's the CEO of Cruise, he said, this is not a science project, this is a business. And it's really refreshing to hear more individuals speak the way that Mr. Amman is speaking about this technology, because without revenue, without profits, there's no jobs, there is no business. We've talked about the global logistics hub. We've talked about the mobility innovation zone at Alliance. Do they overlap? Or are they in different parts of the development? Are you kind of, from a geography standpoint, could you shed some light on how it's laid out?
Yeah. So the Mobility Innovation Zone, there's really no just place. It is within all of AllianceTexas. We're leveraging every asset we have, if you need to demonstrate, for example, what we did with Bell and doing the package delivery from our flight test center here up to our communities, one of our communities, Pecan Square, and delivering a package to the town square that via UAS drone. That was one example, but also we're leveraging the highways and the rail, the intermodal to do autonomous container delivery or long haul trucking, things like that. So really leveraging everything we have within the Alliance development to do all that. So an area that I'm really focused on is what we call our smart port, which is 1,135 acres on the west side, right at the front doorstep of BNSF. We have this as really undeveloped land. We have planned 15.5 million square feet of industrial development. So the goal of this is to make that really a leading development that leverages all the things that we've been learning, whether it be autonomy, whether it be electrification, whether it be smart infrastructure, IoT, 5G, et cetera, making sure that we develop that in a way that is not so much focused on the immediate needs, but really the long-term future and as being a really sustainable development. So we're seeing more and more freight move to intermodal. So the BNSF Alliance intermodal hubs, I mentioned, really key piece of infrastructure for us. It's about 1.1 million lifts per year out of that facility. That is the largest inland port in the U.S., the largest big rail hub, very, very large, very similar in size to the Port of Houston, just by reference. And they're actually growing that facility to about 2 million lifts, kind of at about a 20% annual compounded growth rate over the next 5 years. A lot of that is because companies we work with, especially the larger companies with big sustainability goals, are moving a lot of their freight to intermodal because it's 3 to 5 times more efficient than over-the-road trucking. And also, just as a pure capacity equation, there's just not enough trucks on the road currently to get all the freight from the West Coast ports and all the coastal ports into the center of the country. There's just not enough capacity. So for reference, an intermodal double stack train could do about 220 containers. It's a lot of trucks that would have to do that. And we're doing about 14 trains a day through the BNSF intermodal facility. So all that volume has to go somewhere. And so we're focused on making that 15.5 million square feet, very intermodal focused. For reference, that can do about 200 to 300,000 containers a year through that 15 million square feet. So really 25 to 30% of their growth that they expect over the next 5 years, we can accommodate within a mile and a half. So that's a conventional value proposition to a lot of our customers that are looking at their total supply chain costs. Just by reference, the real estate is probably the smallest part of the equation whenever you look at the costs of a supply chain. Biggest one being trucking and freight. So a lot of that is how do we work with our customers to be more cost efficient, more carbon efficient, and ultimately more time efficient. So safety is a big thing with autonomy as well. So a lot of big questions that we're trying to answer with that.
I have this theory that I've been screaming from the mountaintops, and me being me, I believe I'm going to be proven right one day, that a railroad company, based on the cash flow and the current balance sheets and the ability to get a loan today at very low interest rates, will acquire an autonomous trucking company. Because from a cost perspective, it is much cheaper to have a truck go the 200, 100 miles than it is to build the rail, go through all the political, the filings and all that. Are you seeing anything interesting from your perspective where the railroads are cooperating or working with the autonomous trucking? And then from a developer standpoint, because God, you build an incredible infrastructure. Have you gotten any requests from some of your customers? Hey, can you build it like this or do a little this because we want to experiment for the future here?
So it's funny you asked that. I mean, you've probably seen Two Simple's board, for example, in the most recent funding round. A lot of their companies, a lot of rail companies invested. Union Pacific invested. I can't remember which Canadian rail line invested, but there are companies that want to see at the table. They want to see kind of how is long haul trucking going to impact my business. I failed to mention this at the start of the call, but my father, my grandfather, my brother, my great grandfather were all railroaders. So I am the really the first in my family not to be in the rail industry somehow, except for this kind of way that I'm working with it currently. But we work very closely with BNSF, and it's been really interesting kind of seeing that as well. But we are working with a lot of different autonomous companies. And what does the model look like? There's groups like Baton, for example, that are looking at how do you build these drop and hook lots. And there's groups, all these different autonomous companies are looking at how do they build the infrastructure. And that's really, I think, when you ask a lot of them, what's kind of the biggest thing holding you back right now? It's the infrastructure. The technology's there. We got to start building these things and start scaling it and growing it. And that's why you've seen some of these really big capital infusions recently to a lot of these companies to help them really grow.
Is the smart port Is that taking all of the learnings from Alliance and putting it together for what you believe will be the port of the future? And for the listeners, port, I mean inland port, not on a body of water. Is that what you're building?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great way to describe it. I mean, so if you think about it, the way I like to describe it is our vision is ultimately a container leaves Asia and is on a ship. And from the time it is packed in Asia to the time it is distributed and you get your cell phone case to your front doorstep, a human never had to touch it. So right now, there's some areas of the supply chain where that's happening. I mean, you've seen, for example, in Long Beach with the fully automated container terminal that's loaded on a train that comes into the center of the country, then unloaded. There are a lot of autonomous autostrads now in operation, and then put onto an autonomous drayage vehicle, whether it's a yard truck or ultimately an actual full Class 8 heavy drayage truck, and then put into a warehouse, distributed or filtered through, and ultimately distributed. And I think, a lot of that is the big idea. And there's some things that, we've been learning that we can ultimately apply to that. But yeah, I mean, that 15.5 million square feet allows us to do some really innovative things and really try and be there with our customers as they're leaning into this. And that's ultimately what all this is about is, how do we be there with our customers that are really leaning in heavily? We want to make sure that we're giving them every tool that they need to be successful, whether that be space or whether that be power, or whether that be relationships or introductions. That's what we're here for.
There's a really innovative company recently announced they raised $85 million with Gatik AI. Gaham, the CEO, is an incredible gentleman. And I remember years ago, the first time I met Gaham, I started talking about the technology. And very similar to what you said, Grayson, this is a business. We have to generate revenue. I'm running a business. We have to generate revenue. And he was the first individual that I spent a lot of time with in Autonomy that really understood that this is a business. And then lo and behold, there's a press release. Gatik is doing middle mile for Walmart. I said, okay, this gentleman's running a business and he's got one of the world's largest, if not the world's largest retailer in Walmart operating with him. Then there's another press release that comes out. Well, lo and behold, all roads lead to Hillwood. And they're operating at AllianceTexas. You talk about what's happening with Gatik at Alliance?
Yeah, happy to. So one, fantastic team at Gatik. We've been really fortunate to work with a lot of their team, whether it be Gautam or Sam or really just anybody over there, Brad, et cetera. So, I mean, it's been great. They're a really forward-thinking company. I mean, they were one of the first companies to do full driver out. They were one of the first companies to do, if not actually, I think they were the first company, full driver out, also the first to do autonomous electric vehicles as well with their demonstration down in not demonstration, their actual routes they've been doing for Walmart down in New Orleans area, which has been really, really interesting to watch. They are focused really, really heavily here on growing their footprint in Texas through all their different relationships. And I can't say which companies are working with other than we're really excited about it. And also, as a side note, so we as a company, the Hillwood companies, have a venture capital group called Perot. And what this Mobility Innovation Zone has done, really as not by any means our primary goal of this, but has really led us to meet some really interesting companies that are needing funding. So at various different stages. So really we've been able to invest in a lot of different companies. And actually Gatik was one company that we recently invested in their Series B. So that was really interesting for us to have that opportunity to invest with them. And that was just a testament to us really knowing the team, seeing the business model, seeing, once again, as you're saying and what I'm saying, it's not just a science project, that they were really, really commercializing this and had some really great partners they're working with. So we're excited for them. I think they're a great ad, and we'll hopefully keep seeing them grow here in Texas.
Congratulations on being a part of that Series B. I think Gatik is, in my opinion, was and still is one of the most underrated companies in autonomy because they're solving an incredible issue. If you see the post from Tom Ward from Walmart puts on LinkedIn or the Walmart blog about the difference that's having with Walmart with their dark store to the Walmart neighborhood groceries, it's really positive. And Walmart's screaming their praise from the mountaintops. And now we've got a world-class company for the world-class founder investing in them. And then you also had Koch Industries that was part of that round as well with Jason and Chase. Incredible set of investors. And I got to say a huge thank you to Riley Brennan, who was seed money in Gatik from Trucks VC. He made that introduction years and years ago when Gatik was a small company, and now they're a big company. And it's fun to watch these companies grow up and know the founders over the years. And it's also really fun to watch technology mature and grow and adapt. And that's the really fun thing about this mobility innovation zone. You mentioned it earlier, and I want to go back into eVTOL now for a minute because you did a Bell UAS delivery. Did you have to go through FAA approvals? Did you have to clear the route on the ground to ensure that if something happened from a safety perspective, it didn't fall out of the sky and you get a phone call, Ian? No, we got an issue over here, sir.
Yeah. That was a big moment for, I think, North Texas, the state. Everybody is really demonstrating that we're open to autonomy, not just on the ground, but in the air. And that program, just to demonstrate that, took a lot of work. So my counterpart that leads the air side, Chris Ash, really worked in the trenches with these guys to get that to happen. And when I say in the trenches, I mean, it's meeting with the FAA, doing flight planning. It is helping with the practice flights. It is going door to door even and meeting with homeowners and making sure they're aware of what's going on above them, make them comfortable with it. Because I think, a lot of times it's our role within Hillwood, and one of our strengths is the ability to help with that Hearts and Minds campaign and making sure people are comfortable with this new idea. And that was a really great example of that. And so a lot of work went into that. It was FAA, it was Denton County, it was Northlake City, it was Fort Worth was involved. I mean, there was so many different moving pieces in that. But ultimately, it was pulled together and successful, and we're really excited about it.
You said the most important thing that every single company, whether you're an autonomous developer, you're a community developer, is trust of the community.
Mm-hmm.
If you're even a politician, if your constituents, the individuals that live in that community, they want to be a part of that technology. And when I served as the co-chair of the Autonomous Vehicle Task Force City Beverly Hills, we had one rule: no surprises. And I give you and the Hillwood team a lot of credit for talking to the neighbors that are living in that area to say this technology is going to be running, which raises the question, do you get individuals that are moving in there and homeowners that want to be a part of the future and say, this is really cool alliances where things are being built, and is that a motivating factor for some individuals to relocate there?
I'll say first, one of the key learnings that we've had here with our 30 plus years here in AllianceTexas, 33 years now, is you have to keep people in the loop. There's a lot of really, really important stakeholders to what we're doing here. And I've mentioned the city of Fort Worth. I've mentioned Tarrant County, Denton County, the state. Nobody likes surprises. Everybody likes, to be in the loop. And especially on things like this, it's really important to have everybody at the table. We've learned that over the years. And that's a big benefit we have is those relationships and those abilities to know who to talk to. If you're planning something, how do we help? That's certainly a key factor in that and something we're very proud of. I mentioned our communities group, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, master plan community developer in the state of Texas. So they do some really forward-thinking projects. So there's two in the northern end of Alliance that they're currently working through right now. One is called Harvest, and one is Pecan Square. So both of those are over 3,000 homes. So Harvest is a lot of communities. You build the traditional models. You build it around a golf course or a park or something like that. This has parks, sure, and walking trails, but it was built around the idea of a farm. Homeowners in that have the ability to have a food plot and there's a gardener on staff that teaches them how to grow fruits and vegetables and things like that. And there's things for the kids. And the Pecan Square was built around an old horse farm. And there's a big horse barn that we've converted into an event space. And there's a little central town square with a little coffee shop. And then there's event space and there's live events and things like that. But all this is just ultimately we are doing everything we can to make these communities unique, make these communities well thought out and planned. And just like we've been doing on the industrial side, it's not so much the end product is a result of years of planning and forward thinking and asking what if and how. And so really, as we've started to deploy this autonomy, it's been a great feature to introduce to all of our communities and say, is this something you want? Is autonomous package delivered to your front doorstep important to you? Something you want and something ultimately you'll pay for? And that's been, a resounding yes across the board, is that this is exciting, this is new, and heck yeah, if I can have my Amazon package here in 10 minutes, then I want it. There's some big announcements that are coming up that we're kind of chomping at the bit to get out there, of some new companies that we're working with here in Alliance and some things they're doing on that side, especially on the air, and then also the small on the ground. There's a few things too, but really ultimately that parcel delivery is, I think, a really, really key part of this.
Parcel delivery is great. We ordered books from Amazon for my daughter. Okay, Daddy, are they going to be here soon? Are they going to be here in an hour? No, they'll be here tomorrow. And it's funny, children growing up today expect everything instantaneously, because now There's no more commercials. You have the Apple TV. You turn on Mickey Mouse and Disney Plus, and away you go. You don't have to wait till 3 o'clock in the afternoon to watch a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. You have that instantly when you want. I love the idea of Harvest being built around a farm. So me being me, I have to ask, you got this great community, you've got individuals farming. Are you going to start experimenting with autonomous tractors? Then perhaps there's a local school that can program one as an after-school activity where they can plant seeds or do any sort of dredging. It comes like this really good community involvement based on innovation, extra school, extracurriculars with children. Am I onto something, or am I just totally out there?
No, you certainly are. I think we've had a lot of conversations with Fort Worth ISD, Northwest ISD, both of which are really large school districts in the area. Northwest ISD, we work with a lot very closely, and it's how do we get involved in this? How do we prepare our students for tomorrow? It used to be how do we get our kids coding degrees, and now it's not just coding. It's a lot of different things that go into this. We also here at Tarrant County College have a very robust workforce development program. And we've been doing that for years. And now it's not just train the future of tomorrow, but how do we upskill our current workforce? And that's a big question we have a lot of times is there's a lot of things that are needed in the autonomous long haul side of things that are very common currently in conventional freight and truck maintenance. I mean, there's still diesel mechanics that are going to be needed. You're still going to need some CDL drivers and things like that. But a lot of it is how do you teach a CDL driver or a diesel mechanic how to do sensor calibrations for a truck, or how do you do data download and offload? Those are kind of key questions that we're answering. So very similar to how we're treating it with our customers, we want to make sure that our school districts and our workforce is ready and able and continue to be innovative in how they teach and approach their workforce. Big questions. We actually have not really done much on the farming side of things autonomously. As a company, we have one of the largest Brangus cattle herds in the state. A Brangus is a cross between a Brahma and an Angus crossbreed cattle. We have one of the largest breeds of those here. We've won a lot of awards, and we still ranch all around Alliance.
Based on that, I think something special might happen, and I hope when that does, you shoot me a note and say, hey, guess what? Your crazy idea wasn't so crazy after all. As Alliance prepares for the next 30 years of what has been an incredible vision, I can't wait to see what the next 30 years holds for it. You recently partnered with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute to study the future of mobility and how it could change the way we live. Will you please kindly talk about that partnership?
Certainly. So I'm not an Aggie, but I certainly tend to act like one sometimes. My brother's an Aggie, so I can't say anything but good things. The Texas A&M Transportation Institute is really the leading transportation research institute in the country. They are very active in not just state, but also kind of some of the national things that are going on. And really when we started looking at this is we really needed that unbiased third party in the room. We're not just doing this for Hillwood's benefit or for AllianceTexas or really for North Texas. I mean, it's really the things that we're learning here can be applied to so many different areas of the country. And that was really with their expertise and know-how is, so what are the challenges and what are some things, some barriers that potentially they could break down that if Hillwood was asked the question, we wouldn't get the same answer as if TTI asked the question. And a lot of that is we need that partner. We say partner intentionally. I mean, they're a partner of ours. They're really a lot of the things that we do do because of them. And they're really helping us stay up to speed with everything that's going on currently in this new world.
They're a great partner, a world-renowned institute. They will do great things for you, and you will continue to do great things. And Ian, as we look to wrap up this extremely insightful conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them?
Grayson, one, I appreciate the time today. I think it's been great, and hopefully we got the answers we all needed. But we've hit it a lot today, and I don't want to be exhaustive on this. Our goal here is to do everything we can to help our customers and our future customers grow. We want to be there and help them as they take these ideas to more commercial realities. We want to be with them, whether it be regulatory help or whether that be infrastructure needs or whether that be real estate needs or whatever their needs might be. We are confident that what we have here is really one of a kind from an infrastructure perspective and really a history out here that can really help to move the ball forward on this new world of advanced logistics technologies, especially autonomy. So we're excited for what the future holds. And please, I'm an open book. I'd love to talk with any of your listeners and welcome them to Alliance. And I always like to throw out our helicopter. You know, we tend to take people up in the air because as you can imagine, 27,000 acres from the front seat of my pickup truck is not quite the same as it is from a helicopter. It's you don't quite get the scale and the diversity as you do from the air. So I'd welcome anybody to come check us out here in Alliance and the Mobility Innovation Zone. So thank you.
I'll take you up on a helicopter ride. I think it'll be fun. Then maybe we can record a
You're welcome.
podcast in the helicopter. Hillwood's developing the future at AllianceTexas, and I know I've emphasized this a lot, but it's very important. Hillwood has incredible leadership. The Perot family has done wonderful things for Texas. The individuals that work for the family in Hillwood are doing incredible things, and you're operating this as a business, and you're doing really good things. And $2.8 billion in property taxes is impressive. It's a great company that's doing great things for the local community. And the best part is they're building the future at the same time, because the future is bright, the future is autonomous, and the future is AllianceTexas. Ian, thank you so much for coming on the Road to Autonomy today.
Thanks, Grayson. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Road to Autonomy podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter at Road to Autonomy or email podcast@brulteco.com. The Road to Autonomy is produced by Brulte & Company. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Brulte & Company. The content discussed in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal, tax, investment, or business advice.